From the well-known to the obscure to the really obscure, here's every starter Pokemon's lore in 1 minute each. Bulbasaur. We start this video off with the first ever starter. Bulbasaur will often travel in hordes to sunny locations where they can nap and absorb all of that vitamin D for the seed on its back. Not all the pack gets to come though. In Generation 5, English Bulbasaur were unable to be traded on the global trade system. This was because their name naturally contained the German word so. It translates to so in English, but it's also apparently slang for female pig, and Pokemon's anti-profanity filter wasn't having any of it. The seed on Bulbasaur's back grows along with the Pokemon, even through evolution, until it eventually blooms with Venusaur. But don't be fooled by this baby's appearance, because they are secretly an absolute warlord. Ash's Bulbasaur finished the anime with a 72.9% win rate across all battles. That's higher than fan favourites Greninja and Charizard. Speaking of which, Charmander. Charmander is arguably the most popular Pokemon outside of Pikachu. They're a fire-type lizard that gets a one-way ticket to the pearly gates if the flame on their tail goes out. They evolve into a dragon that isn't really a dragon until Mega Evolution, and Ash's one cost him his Pokemon League debut by being a bum. You probably knew all that, and if you didn't, you do now. Here's a question though. How many fingers does a Charmander have? Well, there's actually two answers. The original Charmander sprite for Red and Green was designed by Atsuku Nishida and featured 3-fingered hands, but when Ken Sugimori drew the official art, he accidentally gave it hands with 4 fingers. And since Pokemon's models for the 3D games were based on Sugimori's art, there was a massive oversight when making its 3D model. Nowadays, Charmander in the anime, TCG, and other media have 6 fingers, but your one in Pokemon Sword and Shield has 8. This is probably the most useless Pokemon fact you'll get this week, but if you enjoy stuff like that, then consider liking the video. Squirtle. Moving on from our fire type now to... Did somebody say fire? Oh no, Squirtle, we're fine. This is just a video. Alright, that's fine. You know I am a water type, and I'm pretty good at putting out fires. Yeah, I'm pretty sure 99% of the audience are aware. Yeah, and I used to be a firefighter in the anime, and my evolution is literally a firefighter. Yeah, that's pretty well known too. I mean, I'm just saying, my name in Japanese literally means money turtle. Oh, I didn't know that? You also might be unaware that Squirtle is quite the chameleon, with both its regular and shiny forms changing colour 4 different times. The light green shell on its shiny form may also be a reference to the Koopa Troopers from the Mario franchise. In the first episode of the anime, Ash Ketchum's original starter choice was Squirtle. Unfortunately, he overslept, so Squirtle went to his arch nemesis Gary, leaving Ash to take care of none other than Pikachu. The validity of Pikachu's status as a starter is often called into question, which is really weird because he's been a valid pick since Generation 1. The electric mouse in Pokemon Yellow would follow you around, go surfing, and refuse to evolve if you try to turn them into a Raichu. They literally give you the nut-ah face. That's not the only secret interaction in this game. If you teach Pikachu the move Thunderbolt while in a dark cave, it would lock in and briefly show you how much you suck at navigating through pitch black puzzles. It's not just Pokemon Yellow they're a starter in though. Obviously you have Let's Go, but Pikachu is also your starter in Pokemon Masters EX and the Pokemon Rumble series. If you don't fancy playing any of those games, don't worry, you're not alone. Plus, this dude can be found in the wild in literally every region apart from Unova, and wherever a Pokemon logo is, you'll usually find Pikachu not far behind. Sometimes though, I think it would be better if they spent some time apart. Eevee, the favourite Pokemon of every person who's not really into Pokemon, but doesn't want to be called basic for saying they like Pikachu. This cute and cuddly fox serves as the perfect pet and Ariana Grande tattoo. Eevee's outstanding quality is its number of evolutions, being able to turn into 8 different Pokemon, commonly referred to as Eeveelutions. Flareon, Jolteon, Vaporeon, Umbreon, Espeon, Leafeon, Glaceon, and Sylveon. Pokemon Sun and Moon were meant to add a flying type evolution, but it was scrapped for being too similar to a random fan design. Ironically, in the main game where Eevee is your starter, it can't evolve into any of them. Instead, It learns a bunch of unique elemental moves that would be absolutely broken on any other Pokemon. Eevee is also the player's starter in the spin-off game Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, and its evolutions Espeon and Umbreon serve as your first Pokemon in the prequel game Colosseum. Chikorita. Unfortunately, this is the first starter on the list that's honestly kind of underwhelming, and that isn't an unpopular opinion. For starters, it's a pure grass type with a basic design and very little lore. I partially blame Game Freak for this because they've never really given Chikorita the tools to shine, but you know you don't have much to work with when an evolution line's most unique trait is their breath. Meganium's breathing can resurrect plants from the dead and calm down any Pokemon, making it a pretty effective pacifist. This role is reinforced by its appearance in the Johto games, since it can hardly kill anything due to almost every gym putting the grass type at a disadvantage. All of these points combined together make me look really stupid after Chikorita was revealed as one of the starters for Pokemon Legends ZA, meaning it will probably get a new form. Cyndaquil. Ever wondered why Cyndaquil's eyes are always closed? Because they're secretly just a Charmander in a suit. The pair have the exact same stats across the board, and so too do Evolution's Quilava and Typhlosion with their respective counterparts. You could argue Cyndaquil is an improved version of Charmander, since at least they won't die if their flame goes out. Actually, Cyndaquil famously struggles with flame production. It gets its first fire-type move the latest of all the starters, and Ash's one famously had problems using fire-type attacks. This is fixed once they evolve, but unfortunately, they also gain a lot more problems, which I don't think I'm legally allowed to talk about. Anyway, a few years ago, a child got abducted by God and sent to the past. Cyndaquil was one of the 3 Pokemon they got to choose as their starter. They had an alternate final evolution that was dead and constantly looked high. Totodile. Alright, I'll admit it. This guy is reasonably friend-shaped. Turns out though, you can also be friend-shaped and a complete menace to society. This guy bites anything and everything, and coincidentally, their jaw also has the power to destroy anything and everything. It's such a demon that trainers are advised to never turn their back on their Totodile, unless they fancy having a bit of their spine removed. Its evolution Croconaw is even worse. Once it's bitten onto something, it won't let go until its teeth fall out. They should have probably learnt a few more water attacks instead of biting, because aside from Water Gun at level 6, Totodile doesn't get another water type move until level 41. They make up for this by being a fast grower. They're the quickest starter Pokemon to reach its final form at level 30. That final form will probably have an extra form in Pokemon Legends ZA. Ukulele Pichu. Oh yeah, we're doing spin-off starters too. Ukulele Pichu is your starter in Pokemon Ranger's third and probably final game, Guardian Signs. They live on a small uninhabited island in the game's Olympia region, and were given a handcrafted ukulele by a visiting carpenter named Booker. During the first chapter of the game, the island is invaded by Pokemon pinchers looking to test out their new Pokemon capture device. Pichu survives the attack but is given a healthy dose of trauma, watching all of its friends get abducted. Hours later you wash up on the island having just been shot out the sky by the pinchers in a separate incident, and just when you think your day can't get any worse, this Pichu attacks you thinking you're one of the pinchers. So you use your Ranger capture magic to calm Pichu down, and then with some help from Booker, they agree to join your side as partners to get revenge on the pinchers. When capturing a Pokemon, you can sometimes tag Pichu in to help. Their tunes are so fire they'll even open the hearts of legendary Pokemon. Treecko. The first grass type starter to get up on 2 legs is a gecko with unimaginable amounts of swag. Treecko is often referred to as cool, calm, and composed in the Pokedex. A chill guy, if you will. They keep up this nonchalant gimmick even against legendary Pokemon, and their feet and hands have tiny spikes, easily climbing any wall or ceiling in their way. Not even gravity can bother this guy. That's not their only special quality. Treecko's tail can pick up changes in the air's humidity, giving it the ability to predict the weather. Probably quite a useful skill in Hoenn, where the region's ecosystem can randomly decide to just murder you. The evolution's biggest claim to fame is probably Grovyle the Thief, who played a massive role in one of the best Pokemon games of all time, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers. Ash's Grovyle simped for a Meganium so hard it evolved into Sceptile. 220 episodes later, that same Sceptile chopped up the mythical Pokemon Darkrai, Torchic. Time to talk about cooked chicken, and I'm not talking about the Minecraft kind. Inside Torchic there is a flame sack, which provides it with constant warmth. Both male and female Torchics have this, so I'm pretty sure it's not that type of sack. Huh? Trainers who hug this Pokemon frequently compared the sensation to that of a hot water bottle, although I don't know any hot water bottles that can shoot out fireballs at 1000 degrees Celsius. Over the years, Torchic went through quite the design process. Original concept art for the chick looked like this. More of a rabbit than a chicken with those ears. We've got 17 entries before we get to Scorbunny. Furthermore, Torchic's final evolution Blaziken used to be fused with the legendary Latias. Early development concept art shows an unnamed trainer presumably flying on the unknown monster.
Hatsune Miku! Is that you?
Mudkip. This guy wins the award for most nonchalant axolotl of all time. It may be the Hoenn water starter's chill aura that caused it to become such an internet meme. The sentence, "So I heard you like Mudkips," was first used as the greeting message for a DeviantArt group called Mudkip Club. Little did they know it would soon spread and be subsequently spammed onto the wholesome website 4chan. There was even a website that would spam you with constant pop-ups of Mudkip, but at some point the domain expired and it hasn't been revived since. Aside from being a memer, Mudkip is not afraid to throw serious hands. It has an attack stat that dwarfs all other first stage starter Pokemon, on par with Blood Moon Ursaluna. And final evolution Swampert has the highest stat total of any official starter Pokemon. This pure strength combined with them only having one weakness made them an absolute beast on the battlefield when they debuted, and Mega Evolution took that beast and gave them steroids. Plusle and Minun. These Duracell bunnies serve as your partners in the first Pokemon Ranger. Which one you pick up is dependent on the Ranger you pick to play's gender. Plusle will go to the girls, whilst Minun will be available to the lads. You first meet your partner behind a box, and then a few minutes later, it interrupts your job interview for becoming a Pokemon Ranger by getting attacked by a Houndoom. Your future boss catches the Hellhound, while you catch the gender-specific rabbit. After the incident is resolved, you fly off to your ranger base, only to find Plusle or Minun were clinging onto your leg the entire time. Well, I kind of abducted you, but I think you wanted it, so I guess that means we're partners? The rabbit duo stick by your side for the rest of the game, and can aid in capturing wild Pokemon by stunning them with electricity. Honestly, they're more of a taser than an actual starter if we're being real, but I wanted to include them regardless. Turtwig. We've reached the 4th generation, and we're already reusing ideas? No, you numpty. Squirtle is a turtle. Blue's in the name. Our chum over here is a tortoise with a soil shell, and it has to stay constantly hydrated to stop it drying out. Once they hit level 18, it evolves into Grottle, and trades the mound of earth for 2 bushes. Am I the only one that sees the comparison? Never mind. Final evolution Torterra shows they've earned their secondary ground typing by carrying a whole ass world on their back. Some small Pokemon will spend their entire lives there, so that's why I never find any shinies. Turtwig was the first ever Pokemon I owned, and the only reason why was because Ash had one, and it was a beast. Quagsire, Rampardos, other Turtwig. It didn't matter. This guy slapped them all. In fact, the only thing that could beat Turtwig was evolution. Chimchar.
Monkey.
Chimchar has a butt that's constantly on fire. The blaze is fueled by the gas created in their stomach from consuming food. It only stops when the Pokemon goes to take a nap. but if you can look over the fact it's fueled by farts, it makes a pretty good starter, especially considering there's like 5 fire types in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, and 3 of them are this evolution line. Chimchar's final evolution Infernape is fire fighting type, the same typing as Blaziken, but it differentiates itself by being inspired by Goku. No, literally. It was a fan theory for a while, but this card from TCG Pocket basically confirms it. It's not just fighting and cloud riding where the pair are similar. Infernape is also an infamous aura farmer. I'm not complaining though. Ash's Chimchar gave us one of the best anime arcs and arguably its most iconic battle. He was kind of a reverse Torterra given that he never lost a battle after activating its Blaze form. These achievements combined with its general level of swag earned him the nickname Himfernape. Piplup. Starting off as a humble penguin, Piplup has climbed the ranks over the years and is now arguably a top 3 most popular starter. I think this is down to everyone that watched Dawn's Piplup in the Diamond and Pearl anime growing up, and then spreading Piplup propaganda on the interwebs. Blue Pingu is a very prideful Pokemon, sometimes not even accepting food from its trainer because it wants to go out and find it themselves. Sounds like a bit of a struggle when you realize this guy can't even walk properly. Prinplup is a solitary Pokemon that can't live in groups because each one thinks they should be leader, and Empoleon will literally kill Pokemon that hurt their pride. It seems being the first ever water steel type has given them a bit of an ego. This is pretty ironic considering how much Prinplup is bullied by the community for being ugly. There's even an anime episode where Dawn's Piplup desperately tries to stop itself from evolving. Not even they want to turn into this guy. Starly, Pachirisu, and Munchlax. No, I'm not schizophrenic, but this is probably the weirdest starter selection we'll ever have. You've got generic bird Pokemon 37, a Pikachu clone that's somehow a world champion, and the rarest Pokemon in the entire Sinnoh region. These guys appear in Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almia, rudely interrupting you whilst you're doing some work experience. You and your future Ranger colleagues rush to the beach in an emergency. The trio, along with some Shellos, have surrounded a woman and appear to be performing some type of ritual. Your group agrees to split up and capture one Pokemon each, and whichever one you choose will eventually become your partner later on in the game. Yes, I know it's a war crime that they don't let you catch the Shellos. As to who you should pick though, Munchlax is like 1,000 times rarer than the other two, at least in the main series games. But on the other hand, it's also really funny to pick Starly, so I don't know. Onto the universe starters we go with Snivy. There's a lot I could say about this guy, but let's begin with the arms. Very tiny. So tiny in fact that it has to use vines from its neck to grab and pick up stuff. If you think that's tragic, just wait until it evolves into Serperior and loses half of its limbs. Just kidding, they're actually behind its back for some reason. We were so close to having a vegetable Rayquaza. There was a time in Pokemon history where Snivy wasn't actually called Snivy. From 2004 to 2010, there was a TV show every week in Japan called Pokemon Sunday, where people would talk about Pokemon on a Sunday. During one of the show's final episodes, Junichi Masuda would reveal the starter Pokemon for their upcoming games, Pokemon Black and White. Since the starters had no official English names, the online Western Pokemon community unanimously decided to refer to Snivy as Smugleaf. Weird. Usually Pokemon fans don't agree with each other. Tepig. At last, it's time to talk about everyone's favourite sandwich ingredient in Scarlet and Violet. Tepig is a pure fire type that evolves into Pignite and finally Emboar. The developers decided to be really unique with these evolutions, giving us our third fire and fighting type starter Pokemon in a row. Oh well, at least they made Emboar the only fire type starter to be able to use a water attack in Scald. That's unique, I guess. You can't talk about Tepig's lore without mentioning Ash's one. They were abandoned by their trainer Seamus for losing to the grass type Pokemon Deerling. This guy didn't just abandon them though. He literally tied Tepig to a lamppost, sealed its snout shut, and left him to starve. This is a public announcement that it is now legal to attack Seamus with hammers. Ash didn't need a hammer though, because he eventually battles Seamus and absolutely destroys him after Tepig evolves into Pignite mid-battle. Absolute cinema. Additionally, Tepig will be the fire type starter in Pokemon Legends ZA. Oshawott. I have one clip to describe this Pokemon with. For real though, Oshawott is usually characterized as a big bundle of joy. I mean, why wouldn't they be? Everyone knows the real life otter is known for their friendly, kind, and social behavior. Don't Google anything. This happy-go-lucky fella enjoys swimming and busting it down, and one time they grooved so hard that they got featured on a massive building in Times Square. They wield the shell attached to their stomachs like a blade and use its sharp edges to chop up food and ward off any potential threats. It means so much to this Pokemon that every time Ash's Oshawott lost his, he would go absolutely mental. Like Cyndaquil, Oshawott is also a starter Pokemon in Legends Arceus, and therefore has two final evolutions, with the ancient version being part dark type. I guess that makes them more canon to real life otters. Chespin. Chespin is the second grass type hedgehog Pokemon introduced in the franchise, and when it released, it became the first grass type hedgehog to not be locked behind a 5-year-old event. Mind you, at least lore-wise, Chespin is probably a lot stronger than Shaman. According to the Pokemon-wide Pokedex entry, the shell that surrounds Chespin is so durable that even if it got hit by a truck, it would take 0 damage. I guess we know why one of their abilities is called Bulletproof. Chespin also holds the award for goofiest middle evolution, of not just all starter Pokemon, but all Pokemon with Quilladin. At least its final evolution Chestnut is a bit better. And I'm not just saying that because they're capable of flipping a tank. In terms of personality, Chespin are known for their bright and optimistic attitude. I mean, you would be too, I guess, if you could freely run into traffic. They're also a bit of a glutton, as evidenced by Clement's one in the anime willingly stealing and eating French food. Fennekin. Legend has it that half the people that played Pokemon X and Y and chose the Fire-type starter nicknamed them Mozilla. All this proves though is that Firefox is not a very good browser, since Fennekin is actually the official starter Pokemon with the lowest stat total. Similarly to Bulbasaur, Fennekin's twig grows with it as the Pokemon evolves, turning into a bigger stick and then eventually a magic wand that gives the final evolution Delphox the psychic typing. Staring at the wand allows Delphox to lock in and enhance its fire producing capabilities, and it can even produce flames that reach up to 3000 degrees Celsius. This might just be the most fireproof stick of all time. Surprisingly though, Game Freak doesn't seem to care that much about Fennekin or Delphox, mainly giving the media spotlight to middle evolution Braixen. Not only were they heavily featured in the X and Y anime, but it somehow wriggled its way into fighting game Pokken Tournament. I guess there's a certain audience they have to cater to. Froakie. You may prefer another water type starter, but does your favourite have its own type of bubbles? Froakie does, and they're called Frubbles. Goofy name sure, but they're pretty useful since they provide a shield for Froakie to defend against incoming attacks. Whether it works or not is open to debate, but I guess as a ninja in training, it needed some kind of weapon. Froakie completes this training once it reaches its final form Greninja. This Pokemon can forge deadly shurikens out of compressed water, but quite possibly its biggest weapon is the legion of fanboys that will come out of the woods if you dare say anything negative about it, or its tongue scarf. In the anime, Ash's Greninja could bond with its trainer to enter an enhanced form that resembled the late main character. This form, named Ash Greninja, granted it even bigger water weapons and the power to beat grass types but lose to fire types. And then Ash releases it. Okay, I guess it's just Greninja again now. Rowlet. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is what peak Pokemon design looks like. It's like if an owl and a loaf of bread had a baby, so you ended up with a loaf of bread that can rotate its neck 180 degrees. This grass and flying type sleeps during the day, absorbing sunlight and performing photosynthesis, so it can be active during the night. Talk about being a night owl. So what else does it do with all this energy? Well, it dies. Kind of. Rowlet's final evolution, Decidueye, was the first starter Pokemon to inherit the Ghost typing. Ash's own Rowlet would face off against its deceased father in the quarterfinals of the Alola League, and become the first Pokemon in history to win a battle after taking a nap mid-fight and almost getting eliminated. Take notes, Charizard. Rowlet is the third and final starter in Legends Arceus, and its final evolution in that game prefers to punch people instead of die. They also have a cool hat. Litten. You know how much of a pain it was that this Pokemon was released in 2016? Going on Twitter once this guy was announced was like crawling through a sea of "it's lit" jokes. Nowadays though, we just crawl through a sea of Incineroar, because this cat's final evolution just so happens to have a very specific ability, typing, and set of moves that accidentally made it the best starter Pokemon we've had in Pokemon's official competitive format, and probably the best one we'll ever have. Even its middle stage evolution Torchic has been used in big tournaments before. As for Litten themselves, they're an extremely popular Pokemon amongst introverts. Not just because they're a cat, but because they're also known to prefer being alone from other Pokemon. Ash's Litten, before it was eventually captured, gives us pretty good evidence of this behaviour. Some Litten are even known to attack their own trainers if they attempt to pet the Pokemon before first gaining their complete trust. If you're watching and have owned a cat before, you probably know that's quite realistic. Popplio. You had to be one of Pokemon's strongest soldiers to have picked this guy when Sun and Moon first released, because the amount of hate Popplio got from Pokemon fans was nothing short of extraordinary. There were even claims of fraudulence, with some players arguing other water-type seal Pokemon make Popplio's existence pretty underwhelming. Firstly, you can never have too many seal Pokemon, and secondly, there is plenty that makes Popplio unique when compared to its pinniped friends. For one, their main weapons are their voice. For them, singing lessons are like the equivalent of doing 100 push-ups, and the evolution line even has their own unique ability in liquid voice. Popplio can also blow bubbles that double as a floating torture chamber for Rowlet, and its final evolution Primarina was the first starter Pokemon to get the coveted fairy typing. Primarina's strongest move is called Oceanic Oppressor, and it's probably the closest this franchise has gotten to a Spirit Bomb. Poipole. Wait, hold on. How did an illegal alien get onto the list? Well, first of all, that's a highly offensive term in the current political climate. The official term is Ultra Beast. Secondly, it has been well established in Pokemon Sun and Moon's lore that Poipole is commonly given out as a starter Pokemon on another planet. If anything, this proves just how unfair the normal Pokemon world is. 10-year-olds on Earth get fake dragons and Piplup, but all the alien children have to do is teach this gremlin the move Dragon Pulse, and they get an absolute beast in Naganadel. It's a half bee, half dragon that is stronger than every other starter Pokemon in existence, and has an ability that makes it even stronger whenever it secures a knockout. Ash literally got the best of both worlds after he caught a Poipole, and used its evolution Naganadel in his final battle with Kukui. Ash then proceeded to try and sludge bomb a Lucario, and release Naganadel 3 days later. What is with this guy? Grookey. How do you top the peak monkey design that is Chimchar? Well, you give the monkey a stick apparently. To Grookey, any surface can serve as a drum to whack its stick against. The floor, trees, the opponent's head, they all serve as suitable percussion instruments. The monkey is also a bit of a magician, as hitting the stick can create healing sound waves that restore the vitality of plants and grass type Pokemon alike. Wow, that looks like quite a promising career in medicine, Grookey. Unfortunately, to be a good music artist, you must first sacrifice a stable financial career and dedicate yourself to whatever your craft may be, and that's exactly what Rillaboom did with the drums. Everything in this Pokemon's life is drum oriented. Their signature move uses a drum, and when this Pokemon undergoes the Gigantamax transformation, it turns an entire forest into a drum set. Scorbunny. You know, I really can't help but think that Pokemon uses a randomizer wheel to create their fire starter Pokemon. Because realistically, no one asked for a fire-type rabbit Pokemon that is possessed by the spirit of Messi, but I guarantee no one complained when this guy was revealed. Unfortunately, Scorbunny can't shoot a football without completely incinerating it, so it kicks around pebbles that catch a light from the fire Scorbunny's feet emit. But can you even call him a fire type if their entire evolution line only learns 3 fire moves through level up? Well, I guess it's better than Gen 3 Lamise, and unlike the former, they can change its type using the ability Libero. Also, one of the attacks is Pyro Ball, the signature move of Final Evolution Cinderace. The animation of this attack makes it worth at least 5 fire-type moves. Shame they made it look like generic fire-type attack 37 in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Sobble. Finally, onto this crybaby. Sobble was a very stealthy child. They were definitely the champion of hide and seek as a kid, although it's kind of cheating when you can turn invisible. What happens when Sobble is caught though? It simply cries tears that have 100 times the strength of an onion. Powerful enough to reduce the toughest Pokemon to tears, incapacitating them and allowing Sobble to get away. I like to visualize that there are 100 onions hidden in this Pokemon for reasons I can't really articulate. Such stealthy habits make its evolution in Teleon no surprise. They aren't exactly employed like the other Galar starters, but qualities such as heat vision, invisibility, a hidden blade in its tail, and a finger that can blast water at Mach 3 make it obvious that it's a pretty good gardener. The giant sniper rifle it gets when it Gigantamaxes? That's just for the hard to reach plants. Sprigatito. I'm gonna simplify this for you real easy. Sprigatito is pretty much a grass-type Litten. Both are cats that start out their careers on all fours, but once enough EXP has been gathered, they'll evolve into bipedal cats with the secondary dark typing. Both Hairball's hidden abilities were considered broken when they first debuted, but have both been nerfed since. Unlike myself, both final evolutions are also employed. Incineroar is a professional wrestler playing the heel role, while Meowscarada is a fully fledged magician. The only real difference apart from typing, obviously, is personality. Unlike Litten, Sprigatito is a complete attention hog, and it will not stop pestering until all eyes in the area are fixated on them. This is probably because it's in their genes for loads of attention, since their body gives off a sweet, sweet smell. Fuecoco. Have you ever looked at a Pokemon and thought, wow, there are absolutely 0 brain cells present? I mean, it makes sense. I don't think there are any brain cells found in a chili pepper. The food fire-breathing Fuecoco is inspired by. More specifically, the inspiration originates from the ghost pepper, which is why its final evolution Skeledirge possesses the ghost typing. See? Absolutely no brain cells. This may be because it's using a lot of its life force for other purposes, such as creating a fireball egg that hatches on the final evolution into a fiery bird. I guess we're giving our starters fake additional Pokemon now? What is this, a 2-for-1 deal? Skeledirge keeps the bird from flying away with its amazing vocal skills, and the two double up on the opponent when using their fairly broken signature move, Torch Song. You can't witness Game Freak give a Pokemon an 80 power, 100% accuracy move that always raises their special attack, and then say power creep isn't a thing. Quaxly. Not the most exciting final entry unless you're a big fan of Donald Duck, but that's what you get when you do a video in chronological order. Much like Popplio, Quaxly suffers from a copycat problem. Ducklet and Psyduck already exist, so why should Quaxly? Well, I would advise you right now to stop being mean to them. They are incredibly self-conscious and have a tendency to overthink things and keep things clean. This guy clearly has OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Duck Syndrome. Quaxly is also pretty exceptional, since it's not even native to Paldea. The Pokemon swam all the way from an unknown region, which I guarantee will never be elaborated on again. This swimming ability suggests Quaxly has some powerful legs, and it puts them to good use by training its profession as a dancer. By the time it evolves into Quaquaval, it has accomplished some pretty insane feats, like being able to flip over a truck with a single kick and throw it back at insane levels. And that was every starter Pokemon's lore in a minute.